Good morning. My name is Mary Wingo. I'm making this video. It's about 7 a.m. I'm here in Cuenca, Ecuador, in the city center, Central Park here. I'm making it this early in the morning, so because it gets very, very busy and may not have a chance if I wait after breakfast. And today, I made a video the other day about, we're talking about the basics of the stress response, the basic definition, and the two major states that a human must face and endure in order to adapt to a given environment. Okay, so today is going to be fairly interesting. I'm probably going to have to divide this up into several videos because it is quite deep. But one thing about my life living here in Ecuador, and I do live in a cosmopolitan city, but I've also visited many different parts that maybe weren't quite as developed, a little bit more old school, the indigenous various regions and towns. This is a cosmopolitan city, so it's not a fair comparison. But one thing I've noticed being here is that stress-related diseases are much less common here, and I thought this was very interesting. As a student of adaptation, why is this so? Why, for instance, and this is just anecdotal, but the need for psychologists and pharmaceuticals, the need for treatments for mental illness are much less here. Just don't have you just don't have the level of mental illness, and that's number one. People are a lot more laid back, and I'm just trying to figure out why, trying to understand, why is it our developed nations are why is it we're walking disasters, and we've got all these lifestyle illnesses, and like I've mentioned before, in the U.S., the unmitigated stress response is costing us at least $1 trillion a year. So there's a reason to look at this. There's a reason to examine these sunk economic and human costs. So getting back to my original point, going around, and especially in the more primitive, maybe not say primitive, in the less modernized parts of Ecuador, you really don't see these problems that we have in the developed world. Notice that in this city, Cuenca, you have compared to the lesser developed so-called developed regions of Ecuador, you do have a lot more in this city, but not as much, like say as in the U.S., a lot more stress-related problems, because it is a lot more modernized here. In fact, it's very modernized. It's more modernized than a lot of the cities in the U.S. because the infrastructure is so new. But you see this in the more cosmopolitan areas, the more westernized areas. Stress-related diseases just explode. And I looked at this, and there are 4 reasons. I'm not going to go through all of them today because it's going to take a little while, but it's very interesting. There are 4 reasons for this. 4 reasons why the issues here that are related to an overactive stress response is a lot less. Okay. Number one is the differences that I have seen on the taxing of the human working memory. We had talked about the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is what makes us human. I've been studying the frontal lobe for 20 years now. The most fascinating part of the brain, of the human brain, in my opinion, because everything you see here, all the engineering, what we consider society, even if it's more primitive or so-called more advanced, so-called, basically it all requires the collective use of the prefrontal cortex and the working memory. Working memory is like this giant open slate that you can use. It's like a work table where you can solve various problems with adapting to the world, create solutions without actually having to live these solutions. So it's our imagination, and our imagination comes from developing things in our mind, then perhaps doing it via creating this in real time. And frontal lobe is extremely sensitive to stress. It's extremely sensitive to traumas of all types, whether it is from actual psychological stress, whether it's from disease states, of course, alcohol, drugs of all different kinds, including pharmaceuticals. Oh my gosh. The SSRIs, the antidepressants that are very, very common. The classification includes Prozac, Zoloft, and so on. They, after a while, they cause a so-called chemical lobotomy, and that is less ability to solve problems, abstract problems. Now, down here, as compared to the civilization I lived in up north, you just don't have a bunch of, you don't have near the details that human beings have down here. They just don't have quite the level of busyness and tasks and crap to do that's nonstop. The taxing of the time, it's a lot slower. And although you do have lots of gadgets, I've got one right here, and people do obsess over their gadget. It's nowhere near the rate that we have in the developed world. It's nowhere near the rate. Gaming. You just don't have, like, say, for adolescents, and so on, children, adult men, women, whatever. You don't have like the level of gaming, the attachment to the digital items as much, and all this sucks out your ability to solve problems. A lot of people do not have cars here. Of course, you've got a really good public transportation. I don't have a car. And I realized that so much time and money is freed up to do important things, like write a book. There's just a lot of things. You just don't have the complexity of dealing with things, just the chronic little nagging stressors that we deal with every single day. You just don't have as much of that down here. So yeah, the taxing of the frontal lobe, and let me tell you this. The frontal lobe is very, very sensitive to the stress hormone cortisol, and it can be activated during times of stress to try to formulate novel solutions to problems, but too much, just like with other parts of the limbic system, like say the hippocampus, the function starts to shut down because because you're getting into serious metabolic differences. When you're getting into very, very high levels of stress, there's just only so much the body can sustain when you're under high levels of stress. And abstract reasoning is kind of sort of an icing on the cake. It doesn't control your heart rate. It doesn't control your breathing, the vegetative functions. So this is like icing on the cake. So bam, it's first to go, as well as a memory formation, verbal, we call declarative memory formation. Okay, so that's number one. Okay, number two, what was number two? Oh, yeah, number two, this is a big one. This has been studied like to death. And of course, there's all this scratching of heads. Why is this so? Well, we can tell you why. Is the inequality in a society. And this isn't just like a rich versus materially poor a condition. I mean, where you're like living on the streets, which is extremely stressful. Don't let me. But we're talking in fairly wealthy societies like the United States that have a big difference between the super rich and then the rest of us that don't have jack. Even though the people on the lower end of the totem pole may or may not be materially deprived, it's the fact that you're on the lower end of the totem pole that causes huge spikes in stress-related diseases. This is called morbidity and mortality, big time, especially among lower status men. I mean, you can really see this with men, but this has been studied to death. Now, let me tell you, there's two other reasons. I'm going to go over this in my next video. But the reason why living in unequal systems, societies, in my opinion, is so deadly and toxic to the folks at the lower end. Again, we have to go back to the original definition of stress. Stress is the rate of adjustment an organism undergoes in order to adapt to a given environment. Well, the given environment, you've got the organism, you've got the environment. Well, the environment's kind of unjust and unfair, and you don't have a lot of control over your life. I mean, you do have some. Everybody's got some, but those on the lower end of the scale, we just don't have a lot of control over our life. I mean, we are at the whim of the environment, okay? A lot more than folks that are on the higher end. So let's look at this. So at the higher end, you're able to sort of buy your influence or use your influence to control your environment, okay? So you can hire people to do your stressful, not so fun work for you to free yourself up, and then when you're on the lower end, you have to become more plastic. Your rate of adjustment increases because you have to become more plastic in order to deal with the demands and insults of the environment, because you can't buy your way out. I mean, you're just like, okay, let me deal with this. And that it forces you to become more elastic. And as we've just as we see, the stress response is all about becoming more elastic so you can fit yourself to the demands of the environment, okay? And again, everybody has to go through this. I'm not saying that the rich never ever need to be at the whims of their environment, and the poor never have control, but kind of relatively speaking, you have to be more on your feet and more plastic. This is what reality is. When you're the lower guy on the totem pole, you're under, when you're under this type of servitude to the environment, your stress hormones are gonna, and your stress response, I shouldn't just say hormones, the cascade, the biological cascades, which are actually really complicated, go into this plastic mode. You have to be plastic man. You have to adjust yourself. And with that comes the stress-related diseases and higher mortality. That, isn't that simple? It's all this all this mystery, like why is all this stuff different? Why does inequality cause higher rates of death? This is the reason why. Being plastic for too long, too high of an intensity, causes you to just kind of fall apart. So that's it for today. It's starting to get kind of busy. I'm going to go to my black market here. It's just a few blocks down the street here, and have some breakfast, and I don't know, talk to some of my Ecuadorian friends, working class friends, farmers that work up there. But anyway, I'm going to go over the next 2 points in the next video, and this is going to be interesting as well. So have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.